All right, Chad, I saw this incredibly base clip that I needed to show you.
For abortion rights. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Appreciate it. So talk to me first about why it is you wanted to come out here today, because something that struck me was when you were speaking earlier and you mentioned your anger because you had received a text message from the Biden campaign. Why is that?
So I received a text message from Joe Biden's campaign yesterday saying that the Supreme Court had overturned Roe versus Wade and that it was my responsibility to then rush $15 to the Democratic National Party. And I thought that was absolutely outrageous because my rights should not be a fundraising point for them or a campaigning point. They have had multiple opportunities to codify Roe into law over the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and they haven't done it. And if they're going to keep campaigning on this point, they should actually do something about it.
What are you most worried about, Julia?
Damn. This young woman is more intelligent than 99.99,000% of the MSNBC commentators. Incredible. Based. Instead of, I mean, it's just a pathetic loser country. And I think liberals, quite frankly, the more they tweet Debs can't do anything and you're wrong to expect them to do anything, the more they discredit themselves. It feels like a rupture. It feels like a rupture is happening. The only question is whether the corporate media is going to keep its stranglehold over the Democratic Party base in primaries. It's about time people realize that Democrats don't dive one single fuck about anything but money. And it's really sad. It's really fucking sad. Can I just say something? I fucking hate Matt Yglesias. He may be one of the dumbest motherfuckers who's ever existed. I don't think there's anybody who successfully trolls me more than this dumb, wet, damp rag of a human being. One of the dumbest motherfuckers in the planet. And I can tell you, Chad, if we ever experience the glorias of a post-capitalist rupture, I'm going to just let that hang. I'm not going to say any more. But leftists get right. Both persuasion and mobilization matter. What leftists got wrong, sporadic voters are more moderate than consistent voters. So to the extent that issues matter at all that not that much, but some, you pursue both goals the same way. So this is something that's very important to explain to people. I haven't talked about this in a while, but I probably need to mention it. The moderate middle doesn't exist. When people call themselves moderate, they mean that they're not strongly political. Doesn't mean they're moderate on the policies. And this is the facts. This is the facts. The murky middle of the electorate, share of the electorate that self-identify as moderate, independent, or say they are undecided with regards to the 2020 election. Only 2.4% of people self-identify as moderate, independent, and were undecided between Biden and Trump. The reality, here's the ideological map of people who call themselves as independent. This is the right-wing side. This is the kind of like what we would call populist side. This is the left. So it's tilted because this is just how fucking 538 brain works. Basically, this line here is left-right. So the vast majority of people who are independent have left of center economic views. This is people who call themselves moderate. These are people who call themselves moderate. What quadrant are people in that call themselves moderate? The answer is left of center economically, anti-market. So they say moderate voters are all over the ideological map, but if you actually look at the fucking plot, they're fucking left wing. Moderates are more likely to be Democrats. The average moderate in the voter study group data is solidly center left on both economic and immigration issues. Oh, wait, what? Boo, blah, explosion, mind explosion. I'll say that again. The average moderate is left-leaning, solidly center-left on both economic immigration. Oh, what? You mean they're not centrists? Oops. Even undecided voters. Perhaps some centrist policies will appeal to some voters in each of these categories, but so will more extreme policies. That's the point. You don't have to moderate your policies. You should pursue the policy. And by the way, left-leaning policies have the largest bulk of the people. Doesn't mean you're going to get them all, because you can't. Even the people that, this is the ideological position of people who self-identify as moderate, independent, and undecided. They're still, if you draw this line right here and fold it like a hamburger, the majority of the dots are on the left of center side. And the largest single group of dots in the progressive bloc. But, hey, why would you want to look at facts and evidence? Why would you bother looking at the evidence? The people are feeling defeated. Some of us want to tune out to a hot tub stream. Yeah. Well, take a look. Well, let's rage about the SCOTUS justices, huh?
In 1937, President Roosevelt had a problem. A majority on the Supreme Court, led by these guys, the conservative wing known as the Four Horsemen, had spent the previous years striking down many of the laws passed as part of Roosevelt's New Deal. So FDR decided his next reform would be the court itself.
For each justice over the age of 70, and there were, I think, 6 of them at the time, he would add a new justice to the court. So that meant he was going to massively transform the court and put on loyalists to him.
Congress overwhelmingly voted down his proposal, and no president has tried to increase the number of justices on the court since. But what does the Constitution say? When drafting the Constitution, the framers knew the new country needed a Supreme Court to weigh in on legal challenges to the nation's laws. But they didn't know exactly to what extent it would provide a constitutional check on Congress and the executive branch. In fact, it wasn't until 1803, in Marbury versus Madison, that the court first ruled a government action unconstitutional, officially establishing the act of judicial review. So in the beginning, the framers kept the details about what the court should look like pretty vague. Article 2 of the Constitution gives the president the power to nominate a justice and the Senate the ability to confirm him or her. And Article 3, which establishes the judiciary, says only that justices hold their offices during good behavior. We'll get back to what this means later. And that they get a salary that can't be diminished. That's it. They left all the other details up to Congress.
The size of the Supreme Court is actually up to Congress to specify by law. That actual number is not in the Constitution.
Noah Feldman literally wrote the book that law students use to learn constitutional law. He says the framers wanted to give Congress the flexibility to shape the court in response to the needs of a growing nation.
The Judiciary Act of 1789, one of the first important laws that was passed, specified the size of the Supreme Court, and they actually started with 6 justices at the time.
From nearly the beginning,
and then they started getting ties,
shaping the size of the court. During his lame duck session, President John Adams signed a law bringing the court down to 5 justices. The following year, Thomas Jefferson, who felt the move was an attempt to limit his power, signed legislation to reverse Adams's law before it could go into effect. Over the next 60 years, Congress largely tied the number of justices on the Supreme Court to the number of circuit courts in the rapidly growing country. In 1863, with the creation of the 10th Circuit, the court got its 10th justice. But in the wake of Abraham Lincoln's assassination, Congress trimmed the court to 7 justices to prevent President Andrew Johnson from loading it with Southern Democrats. A few years later, the new Republican president, Ulysses S. Grant.
So in other words, the Supreme Court has been packed and repacked a million times in the past, including by the founding fathers. So it's about as normal as it can be.
Set the number back to 9 under the Judiciary Act of 1869. That's where things stood until FDR.
But we cannot yield our constitutional destiny to the personal judgment of a few men who, being fearful of the future, would deny us the necessary means of dealing with the present.
FDR's court packing plan ran into 2 major problems. The first was that the sitting justices, including moderate and liberal justices, were deeply opposed to it because they thought it would delegitimate the institution. The second is that lots of Democrats, especially in the Senate, were sensitive to the charge that Roosevelt was basically trying to make himself a dictator. The Democrats already controlled the House and the Senate, and they controlled the presidency. And if they also controlled the Supreme Court, there would be no check on his power at all.
I shall not be a party to breaking down the checks and balances of the Constitution.
This is more power than a good man should want or a bad man should have.
Roosevelt's plan was defeated in Congress, but that doesn't mean his gambit was a failure. On the next round of challenges to the New Deal that made it to the court, Justice Owen Roberts left the Four Horsemen and voted with the court's liberal wing. While Roberts never explained his change, some historians speculate he was swayed by FDR's attempt. The so-called switch in time that saved 9 was the ultimate compromise. It kept the Supreme Court intact and saved the agenda of an ambitious president. No president has tried to change the size of the court since.
It's really, really, really hard to pack the court. Don't take up a plan to do court packing unless you have a lot of confidence that you have the votes in advance to get it done. It's just extremely hard to do.
One big problem with expanding the
One thing that I would say that is to disagree with this, Roosevelt had an opportunity to take a compromise bill that would have given him less justices. The reason why he wasn't successful at expanding the court was because he went for the 6 instead of like taking a couple. And that was the mistake.
court is that there's nothing stopping the next president and Congress from doing the same.
So
Then
what?
the next president adds more.
So what? So fucking what? And you have to have a majority of the House, a majority of the Senate, the presidency. So fucking what? Do it then. And I don't care.
And the next president after that. Before long, the Supreme Court starts to look like this.
And now you're getting out of town. Oh, no, I ain't. Oh, yes, you are. Oh, no, I ain't. Oh, yes, you are.
So what other options do presidents and Congress have to alter the makeup of the court? One idea is term limits for justices. There's just one problem. That line from the Constitution, the one that says judges shall hold their office during good behavior, it doesn't say it directly, but good behavior has always been interpreted to mean that judges would serve for life, unless they were impeached. The idea was that a justice should be independent and insulated from political pressure.
All you have to do is have the law say good behavior means 18 years, and you're done.
Problem is that it's made Supreme Court nominations rare, and now they're highly politically charged. One proposal gaining traction is to create 18-year term limits for Supreme Court justices, staggered so a new justice is confirmed every 2 years. Proponents say this could work by giving the retiring justice senior status and rotating them to a lower court. In fact, 3 members of Congress have introduced legislation that would do just that. But Noah
Buyers
Feldman
just keep
has
winning,
his
chat.
doubts.
To my
Buyers
mind,
just keep winning.
That represents a very problematic and doubtful reading of the Constitution and of its intent. It doesn't seem to be consistent with our tradition of how we've come to understand Supreme Court tenure.
Ultimately,
So
the
what? And? So fucking what?
best approach might just be the old-fashioned one. Wait until a seat opens up.
It's very hard to use ordinary statutory reforms to change an institution that has its roots in the Constitution. If you ask me, is there a mechanism of reform that stands out as simple and easy? And
What? It says in the Constitution it gives direct powers to Congress to choose the size and jurisdiction of the court. It's intended to be subject to the powers of the elected branches. What is this fucking weirdo centrist idiot talking about?
and that wouldn't break the institutional capacity of the court. I don't see one at the moment.
Liberal says, can't do anything. You just lose. Centrist brain damage. Is it viable to have judges elected? I mean, it happens in almost every state has judicial elections. What do you stand on the militarization of police? I think it's evidence of a broken society that can't provide basic services and opportunity to its citizens. Pretty sad and pathetic. All right, chat. We need some goodies. How about we have a little bit of goodies? In the UK, there is a rail strike, and it's being led by a charismatic labor union president by the name of Mick Lynch. He fucking rules.
Prices are rampant. Inflation
Yeah,
is
Yami,
rampant.
that's right.
But what else is rampant? Profit has never been higher. We've never had so many billionaires in this society. The super rich are getting richer and richer year after year. The workers are getting poorer year on year. And what do we say? We refuse to be poor anymore. Prices are rampant.
He's a goddamn champion.
got a capitalist system that is rigged in the interests of the private companies and the powerful, and rigged against the interests of the ordinary people who make this country run. There isn't a train that moves in this country. Not a bin gets emptied or a shelf that gets stacked without the kind, generous permission of the working class. And it's about time we let them know that enough is enough. Across the trade union movement and working class people of all stripes, we're with you. They want to paint us as your enemy, but we are your comrades. This is for every worker who has to claim benefits whilst in work, for every worker that goes into a food bank, for every worker that's getting robbed by a landlord. We're with you, and enough is enough. It can be better. So let's all fight together and let's get the result we need, which is a better deal.
All right, Chad, this is one of the things that's truly amazing. Centrists have taken back over the Labour Party in UK, and this is what they look like.
Let's talk about strikes. The RMT strikes last week. 50 MPs went against the wishes of the party leader and joined the RMT picket lines last week. What is going to happen to them? What will the repercussions be?
Well, I suspect the Chief Whip will be speaking to them next week and making it very clear that a serious party of government does not join picket lines.
Let's talk about strikes.
What? The Labour Party doesn't join picket lines? That is what centrists are like. Just be Tory light. Incredible. 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 I mean, this Labour Party, I mean, it's fucking useless. That's what happens when you get American Democrats poisoning your party. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit, dude. So chat, in a little over 2 weeks is the European TwitchCon in Amsterdam. Who here is going to Amsterdam? Well, make sure you get your tickets now because flights are being canceled at a ridiculously record rate. Not good, folks. Not good.
Has never been a worse experience.
Travel nightmare played out at airports across the country.
Customers are left frustrated by the cancellations and the delays.
Thousands of cancellations.
Skyrocketing ticket prices.
It's called the misery map.
Tens of thousands of flights have been canceled at the last minute in recent months. Experts say they've never seen anything like it.
I don't see an end in sight. This is really unprecedented in terms of the number of cancellations that are occurring so close to departure time.
Media reports have blamed the airline chaos on weather problems and staff shortages, but that misses the bigger picture. These cancellations are really a scandal about corporate power, one that airline executives engineered. Here is how it worked. During the pandemic, airlines secured one of the biggest public bailouts of any industry, $54 billion. The catch? They couldn't lay off their workers. But they found a loophole.
Delta will soon offer employees buyouts and early retirement opportunities.
October 1, furlough day for 30,000 workers at United and American Airlines.
Instead of layoffs, airlines used furloughs and early retirements to push out pilots and crew. By fall of 2021, they'd shrunk their workforce by 56,000 people.
Oops.
Airlines schedule their flights 11 months in advance. They know they don't have the pilots to service these flights. So now passengers are paying the price.
Oops.
Airlines are essentially committing fraud, scheduling and selling thousands of flights they know they can't service.
They sold tickets to the traveling public that they cannot live up to, and it's driving us pilots crazy.
I hate seeing some of the things that we're putting out about specifically being fully staffed for this summer.
So we're well staffed for the summer.
I know that that's not true. We're making these empty promises that I'm already used to getting to the public.
1,300 pilots expected to demonstrate here outside the airport this morning. They say they're overworked and understaffed, and it's leading to delays and cancellations.
Airlines are rushing to rehire, but staffing is still below pre-pandemic levels. They know they don't have pilots to fly their scheduled flights.
There is pressure. We don't have the pilots that we need to fly a full regional schedule.
They're just refusing to tell passengers in advance, instead canceling flights at the last minute. The industry acts like it can get away with this because it usually does. A wave of mergers has left just a handful of huge, powerful airlines. They charge higher prices for worse services, pile on fees, and ignore regulations they don't like. In 2021, airlines refused to return $10 billion to customers for canceled flights despite rules requiring refunds.
The finest air crews in the world belong to the United States. It's the airline personnel in the suites, the corporate suites. They don't give a fig about their customers.
The FAA is supposed to
Holy
hold
shit! Bill O'Reilly said something right?
Airlines accountable. But experts say it's one of the agencies most captured by corporate power. For example, the FAA has let airlines move most airplane maintenance to non-certified mechanics outside of the US to cut costs.
There's no transparency on the critical maintenance and repairs outsourced to El Salvador, Brazil, and China, often under far less stringent oversight.
The FAA also still allows airlines to charge parents a fee to be seated next to their young children. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who oversees the FAA, has done...
Yeah, Pete, he knows a lot about the FAA. Oh, man. I can't wait to have Petey Pete. He looks like a child being brought to work. Give me a break.
Little to address these issues or the cancellations crisis. After advocates raised concerns, Buttigieg decided to meet privately with airline CEOs and politely told them to do better.
I want to know that, I politely told them to do better. You bootlicking piece of shit. Fuck Pete Buttigieg.
This is a moment when we were really counting on them to deliver reliably for the traveling public.
The very next day, his own flight was canceled. The Biden administration...
What an absolute cock! My God.
...has to take action and show that government is working. It's been done before. Like in 2009, when airlines were routinely keeping passengers stuck on the tarmac for hours. The Transportation Department barred the practice, then hit American Airlines with a $900,000 fine for keeping over 600 passengers on a tarmac for over 3 hours. Long tarmac delays have dropped dramatically since. Secretary Buttigieg could similarly threaten to levy hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines on airlines for every canceled flight they knew had little chance of flying. This is fraud. Buttigieg needs to act in the public's interest immediately before Americans' travel plans are destroyed by the greed of airline monopolies.
Hell yeah, dude. Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.